Hello, everyone. This is Gian, and this is the Whale FM Whale X Marketplace interview with artists. In this show, we talk about everything and anything art and crypto in the NFT scene with artists and creators alike, otherwise known as non-fungible tokens. My guest today is Nick Frontera, who is the founder and president of Apollo NFT, a consulting, curation, and production house for NFTs. And he has introduced to the space the likes of Jose Delbo, which is the subject of today's discussion. This beautiful drop that he has coming for us that Nick is going to give us a walkthrough. First of all, thank you so very much, Nick, for having joined us. Can you give us a little bit of a background on how did you first got into crypto and the NFT art scene?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me. Welcome to everybody in the community. So happy to be here talking to all of you. I got started back in, I guess it was 2017. I wasn't the typical, got into crypto early and then migrated to NFTs. I actually went the other way. The first experience I had in crypto was as an investor and kind of community member for Decentraland. And that was the real first experience I had with NFTs. NFTs is a way of, securing digital assets, in that case, land and wearables. And that was, I think, the first time that I really looked at the blockchain and said, wow, this technology is going to revolutionize the way we think about digital assets. And so as a little bit of, further background, prior to and at that time, I was a lawyer in the entertainment industry, working with musicians and film producers, doing all sorts of deals and litigation surrounding IP and all sorts of good stuff there. And so when I was first introduced to NFTs, it really struck me as both, a legal conundrum and something that I really thought was going to change the way we looked at digital assets as everything became more digital. And so, I got involved with Decentraland. At the time, NFTs and digital art were such a small thing. But there was a really, I'd say, passionate group of thought leaders that were starting to really think about what NFTs could be. And by being familiar with Decentraland, that was a really good meeting place, and a lot of these, thought leaders in the space would gather there. And so I got to start meeting a lot of the people who would eventually become the creators and founders of, pretty much every single large NFT project today. And so at that time, I was thinking, oh, this will be really interesting, from a legal perspective. Maybe I can help these people out. And so I was talking through, with the various different teams, different legal considerations around NFTs. But then it quickly evolved into something I was really passionate about myself and wanted to be part of. Through that, I met Danny Chu, who's the founder of one of the founders of Makersplace. And we got to talking about art NFTs and digital art and how NFTs could be used as a means of securing digital art and authenticating it. And that, I think, really opened my eyes up to what was really possible here. And so that was probably around 2019. But the first major splash we had, or I had in the art NFT space, I was collecting a bit here and there. I was seeing artists like Hackatow and Trevor Jones create these really unique crypto art pieces, and I was collecting those. But then I started to look and I said, okay, I have this grandfather whose name is Jose Delbo, and he's been drawing comic book art for the last 60 years for DC and Marvel and all those different studios and producers. And I thought to myself, there's not a lot of high-end comic art in the NFT space. Jose's 86 at the time. He probably wouldn't understand this. He was in the kind of go to convention, sign autographs, do physical pieces phase of his career, which is what most comic artists do after they retire. And so, I had this idea of talking to Jose about, getting involved in the space. And so we started talking about it over time. That was probably January 2020. He was really excited, thinking about, okay, like this is an awesome opportunity for me to reach out to a whole new group of fans and, see people and interact with people in a way that I just can't at the conventions. And he was getting older, so traveling was super hard. We ended up talking about it, and we ended up talking to Danny Chu, and Makerspace thought it would be an awesome idea to get him involved. That was, starting around, I'd say, March of 2020. Well, we all know what happened also in March of 2020, and that's kind of when COVID began, at least in the United States, shutting everything down. The conventions got shut down. Comic artists were pretty much out of work if they were retired. And so Jose, the stars really aligned for him to drop everything and really dedicate himself to new technology. And so I guess, I'm happy to talk about the rest, because the rest was a really fun ride over the past year. But that's kind of how we got started. And then the rest was history.
That's amazing, man. I love the part where you found on your grandpa like this link about what you were already experiencing and what you were going to end up doing, right? So first of all, Jose he has such, I can say unique, because like this is the old style, right? Like in the comics, this is what it used to be. Like nowadays it's completely different. But he found his niche in the NFT space, and the whale community is absolutely crazy about him. We have plenty of collectors. I myself have a piece, and I love the iconic old school thing. And what it gets me thinking, because as you said, he's getting older. A lot of people talk about the accessibility and the age disparity in relationship to accessing the technology. So what were some of the challenges, and how did you dealt with like introducing someone that would not necessarily techno savvy to this completely crazy abstract thing that is the NFT space?
Yeah, that was definitely, I tease to say that I've become an expert in, dumbing down NFTs for older people who just don't get it. Because Jose at first, having been drawing comic art in the physical form for so many years, really didn't understand the idea of digital art. And I think he had the same, well, more selling digital art. I think he had the same questions that, everyone has when they think about NFTs, and they don't know, why NFTs are different, and why, selling a JPEG is different than as an NFT is different than, the right click save type of discourse. And at first it was a bit of a, learning curve and experience getting him to understand what the technology did. But he kind of took a leap of faith, I think, in the beginning on the actual technology itself, because I think, really understanding in depth the technology and how it works is something for nerds like me, but maybe a bit difficult for, an octogenarian. But I think that what was important to him were really two things. And he had really two questions, right? He said, well, when I sell my art at conventions, I sign it and I give people a proof of authenticity. And how will people know that it's for me? And I said, well, the blockchain allows people to know it's authentic. The technology creates a digital signature that anyone can check and, see that this is coming from you. And he understood that. And he said, okay, that's important. The other thing he said was, well, a lot of times when I sell my art, I only sell one, or I'll do a print and there'll only be 10 or 100, or sometimes we won't say how many we're going to do. We just sell it. And I told him, the blockchain allows you to do that too. That's, how the blockchain, when you create this piece, you're able to say, okay, I want there to be 1, I want there to be 10, and the technology records that on the blockchain. And then same thing, people can check and see how many there are, and they'll always know, okay, this one that came from you, there's only 10 of those, or there's only one of those, and there's only 100 of those. Once he understood those 2 points, I think he was like, okay, the world is becoming more digital. I'm an old man, but I want to keep creating art, and if the world wants to enjoy art digitally, that's what we'll do. And so I think, that was the start, right? And I think if you scroll up and you look at his early pieces, which, by the way, the first piece, the Superman battling COVID, there was a series of these pieces. And so a little bit of backstory there. That was the first one of one he ever sold, and it was sold to Whale Shark. So, of course, we had this tie to the whale community before I think it even existed. And Whale Shark was really a pioneer in Jose's career and helping Jose launch. There were actually 3 pieces to this series. And so if you see this series and if you kind of think about comic art, what a lot of comic artists were doing at the time were, they draw their hero in a certain position, or they draw their Superman flying or Superman whatever. But of course, at the time, COVID was such a big thing, and Jose wanted to do something that was really spoke through his art, and I think that comic art, typically you were used to, okay, you have 20 pages of text and comics, and so comic artists are typically used to speaking through many, many pages. Jose wanted to try to speak through a single piece, and that's what we tried to do here. Superman being this beacon of hope out in outer space, battling the COVID, trying to protect the world from COVID. This is, way back in July of 2019. And I think it was topical, and it sent some strong messaging, and it was really well received. I think we were all super taken back by how much the community really jumped on board and really loved that style. And I guess where I'm getting with this is that if you see these first, 3 one-of-ones that were part of that series were all black and white. They weren't animated. It was, Jose's art put on like a really high quality scanner, digitally, I guess, improved by him and the team, and then, cleaned up so that they looked real nice for the digital format, super high quality so that you can print them, you could put them on, a TV screen or a display or whatever it was, which really didn't exist very much back then, but obviously TVs, but they didn't have all these cool different displays. And so we had, this first series that he did, and that was very much his style, right? This was Jose Delbo at its core, black and white, inks and pencils. And yeah, that's how we started. And it really, what was cool about it is over time, things really started to evolve. And so if we go through and you start to think about the last year, his art really changed over the course of the last year. And I thought that was really cool. We did a ton of collaborations that you'll see obviously there, and we can talk about any of them if you want. But each one kind of evolved Jose's art in a different way. This is the one with Hackatow called Heroines. This was obviously a really iconic collaboration. It really got the attention of the comic book industry, brought a ton of comic artists into the space. So this was the I guess the signature piece in that collection, Weight of the World. And I think that what was important in this one I love, because Hackatow did such a great job of storytelling in the background with this, feature piece of Wonder Woman carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. And so this is probably one of my favorite pieces that he's done. But yeah, each opportunity to work with a new artist, and Trevor Jones, Primal Cypher, Hackatow, Anna Zaleva, Mark McKenna, other comic artists. I'm sure I'm missing many. Even with us, with our studio, working with Jose has been an opportunity to really change and evolve his art, and he's loved it. He's loved every bit of seeing his work kind of transformed by another artist and working with those other artists and really creating something really cool.
That's amazing, man. Just to think that after all this time in the industry, drawing for so many years, he found a space where he can experience things. As you said, seeing his work transformed And yeah, this space is absolutely marvelous, and that's so special, really. So one thing that it raises to question, and I think perhaps I'm not going to be able to find someone more appropriate to answer this one, given your background. Uh, are there any IP concerns, like in relationship to the fact that those are like iconic characters from giants in the industry, etc.?
Yeah, so if you've been following kind of the industry, the comic side of the NFT space in the past, 4 months after that Heroines drop, DC and Marvel kind of came out and said, "Hey, we love the NFT space, we love what everybody's doing, but let's hit pause on doing these pieces, right?" And so before that time, it's kind of the IP question is very complicated, and so I'll give you the best kind of the high level version of what the world was like then and now, without getting into too many of the details. But before that time, it was very typical for past comic artists who work for the platform or for the different studios would go from Comic-Con to Comic-Con. They'd create, drawings, and the studios loved it because the studios were, super excited to have their old artists continuing to do work. Super excited to have, fans engaging with those artists. That's what keeps people, super excited about the characters. Keeps people coming to see the new Wonder Woman movie, keeps people, buying the comic books, buying the action figures. So it was always kind of an accepted thing. And oftentimes, specifically, the studios had policies that allowed former comic artists and freelancers to create, I guess, fan art is the technical term for it, of these different heroes. At the beginning of the NFT space, there weren't such policies because the studios really didn't have specific guidance on those things. And so I think there was a lot of experimentation. We were certainly experimenting. I think we felt a lot better about everything because we were in discussions with the studios. We had good relationships with the studios, but there were certainly IP concerns overall, right? Less applicable to these retired artists, but there was a lot of taking comics and just minting them as NFTs. There was some bit of taking art that was created for hire and minting them as NFTs. And so as that started to become more prevalent and the studios started to see the NFT space as a big opportunity to enter, they started reaching out. And so, I can't say a ton about our conversations with the various studios, but before this, during this, and after this, we've always been in contact with the studios one way or another. And, we're really looking forward to Marvel and DC entering the space fully and working with them and finding ways to collaborate and really enhance their offering and bring that artistic, more fine art comic style to it. But Jose also, did, like you're seeing now, his own characters. And so one of them was one that we created together called Satoshi the Creator. But the one we're looking at now is Death. And Death was, I'd say, obviously that's the focus of today and the drop that we have coming up. But Death was something really special, for Jose. Death was, for a lot of reasons, a significant part of his late career. Jose obviously drew, it's kind of a you name it type of thing. Every single hero, you can think of. He did the Beatles, he did the Monkeys, he did 101 Dalmatians, he did Little Mermaid, he did Billy the Kid, Lone Ranger, like anything you can think of, and then all of the, the typical comic heroes. But he never did his own character. He would create a character here and there that would be part of a story. But for him, it was kind of this lifelong dream. And I think every comic artist kind of has this lifelong dream of, I'm going to create a character, I'm going to create a story, and I'm going to put it out to the world for the world to see. And so that was Death for Jose. He had been working on Death since I think 2012, and a little bit at a time, little bit at a time. And then in 2019, he had finally finished this, 43-page comic book, but he was a penciler. He didn't know how to self-publish or, go out and work with a major publisher to distribute these things physically. And so at 86, that would have been tough. And we tried to help, and we were thinking about ways, but the idea kind of came to all of us at that time. Why don't we release Death as this comic book as an NFT? We had this new platform at the time. NFTs were still pretty small, and so it was kind of a big leap of faith for him to take his kind of crown jewel of his career and put it into an NFT and do that with Makersplace. But people were, I think, so excited leading up to his first release about just him joining the space that he's like, you know what, I want to do this. I want to, release this as a limited edition NFT comic book. And at the time, we weren't aware of that ever having been done before with an original comic. And so when we were looking at this and we were saying, okay, we could be really first here, and we could do something different that could set the standard for other comic artists who want to self-publish, or even for bigger publishers for future pieces. And so Jose minted the first set of Death comic books on the blockchain. I think at the time they were like $35, which is super expensive for a comic book. But now compared to what they are now, it would have been a real nice deal to get them back then. But yeah, and that was kind of the beginning of the Death character, the Death story. Jose was like super touched by all the amazing, reviews and things that people said. The comic itself is a little weird if you ever read it. There's very little text, so you have to really, spend some time with the drawings, with the illustrations, to get the story, to understand the story. And kind of from there, we continued to evolve this Death character. Jose, we worked with various different artists. All these different artists really, embraced the concept. It was an easy concept, I think, to embrace because death is so prevalent in everybody's lives, and it's a concept that I think everyone has to come to terms with, especially as an artist. And at 86, this was something Jose was certainly thinking about. And so I think this comic isn't just about a hero. It isn't just about a main protagonist called Death. It's really about Jose thinking about all these different scenarios and his kind of exploration of the concept of death and what that means to him and what it might mean to others. And so yeah, that was a lot of fun, and everything that kind of flowed from it was a lot of fun as well.
Oh wow, man, that's amazing. Where can I get it for $35?
You and me both. I wish I got a few more. When I've got my family members saying, "Hey, where's my copy?" And I'm like, well, that's going to be a heck of a birthday present if that happens.
Oh yeah, no, current prices, yeah. No, but that's amazing, man. And I think this is where we get to the drop then. What this is all about is about this upcoming drop, this very different thing. I see you guys like experimenting new stuff. So why don't you tell us what the drop is all about? And if you don't mind, I'm going to be playing it in the background without sound.
Yeah, definitely. So as a little bit of background context, when I did leave the law firm and decided to join the NFT space full time, I wanted to take kind of what I'd learned helping Jose in the space and doing all these drops and helping with contracts and everything that kind of happens behind the scene, and go and help other artists and help other creators do the same thing, and really try to help the NFT space evolve and help mainstream brands that I had worked with before as a lawyer get involved and understand the power of NFTs and all of that. And so at that same time, I was really, really enjoying working with Jose and helping him with his pieces and helping him produce, these different drops. And I thought to myself, I'd really like to do some of this creative side and the production side myself. And so luckily at the time, or recently, three or 4 months ago, My wife's cousin is one of the founders of a really awesome 3D studio in Colombia. And at the time, they were doing a lot of architectural work. They had super high quality animation skills, super high quality, modeling skills. And I just saw that. And I'm like, you guys really should get involved with NFTs. So at the beginning, we worked together kind of on a project by project basis. We did that for a couple months. And then we decided to join forces, and they came kind of under the flag of my new company, and we established Apollo NFT Studios. And we knew that we wanted to do something pretty significant as our first major project. So 3 months ago, we knew that the 1 year anniversary of Jose's death comic was going to be coming up. And so we set off on something pretty ambitious, and that was to create a comic style short film that took 6 of the different stories from the comic book and told it in the form of, this 9-minute film. But the unique part, as you guys can see in this, is we wanted it to look like a comic book. And we may eventually make an actual physical comic book with AR and, all the technological advancements possible. We're thinking about all the different ways that we can, bring this to life. But at its core, what we wanted to do was create a different type of comic viewing experience, something that was different than your, traditional comic, but paid kind of homage to the to this format and this particular style that Jose used to tell his story. And so if you notice, there's very little words in this film. There's there's obviously no talking. There's just a little bit of background, words and things. But it takes you through 6 different scenes where death is present. And so the one we just saw is Compassion, which is about a Nobel Peace Prize winner who gets caught in a fiery explosion and it burns her body completely through. And then the death character, she survives, but she's not going to have any kind of real life. And so the death character intervenes and puts her to rest as an act of compassion. And then this one is Railroad Crossing. The death character, someone decides to carjack the death character and then quickly finds out that was a bad idea when they get hit by a freight train that's coming through. And so all of these are stories from the original death comic that Jose, created and drew out, and we really wanted to bring them to life. So we were working with Jose on all the details and kind of putting everything together. And so I think I'll tell you about this next one, which is pretty cool. It's called Wanted, and this is probably my favorite one. It's the story of an outlaw who goes into an old saloon and is drinking there, but is wanted by the sheriff, and so he's going to end up challenging the sheriff to a duel. And the problem is he doesn't know that the sheriff actually has death on his side, and so you'll see how the duel ends. But yeah, so I mean, the general concept was, we had our 15-person 3D studio working, 24 hours a day. It felt like for 3 months to really achieve this and create something different. I say it's different because I guess for a few reasons. One, we wanted to do this combined comic style NFT, and I think the format, just the video format, is a little bit different, and we hope that it achieved that purpose of still feeling like a comic book. But the other thing that was interesting is obviously, NFTs and these platforms have, limitations in terms of the file size that you can upload, the quality that those pieces can be, what you can really do with that. Right now, there's some limitations in the technology. And so we were from the very beginning knowing that we wanted to create this 9-minute long video, which we had really not seen an NFT that was 9 minutes long before. I hadn't, at least. And so we were thinking about all the different ways that we could make sure that we keep everything, high quality, but compact. And so throughout the process, we were building it for these platform requirements, and we were able to come in, just under the platform's requirement. I think it's 500 megabytes on this 9-minute video. And so we were really, really proud about that, really happy that ended up working out. And so, yeah, so we went through these 6 different scenes from the comic, did each one one by one, and then kind of combine them all together. And so this piece is actually an edition of 250. It is the piece that it's called Death Reanimated. It's one of the feature pieces of the drop. It's the piece that I think speaks to the concept the most. It is it kind of embodies the whole comic, right? And this was our way of telling the comic through an NFT. This next one's called Flight 4590. It's about a Concorde flight that the Death character warns them is going to explode, but they ignore the warnings, and then you'll see what happens. But yeah, so that was this piece. Along with this piece, we actually created 6 different pieces that take Jose's art, and it begins with a nice color image of Jose's art from the comic book, and then it melts away and it starts playing each of these individual scenes in more of a comic book format. And so those are really cool. Those will be released 3 today. Actually, the drop is at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time for those of you who are interested. And I think you can already actually see the pieces on Makersplace's website right now. But there's those 3 pieces. 2 of them are going to be editions of 5. The other one is going to be an edition of 10. The 2 editions of 5, I think, are really cool, especially because those are actually going to come with a high quality print that's going to be numbered and signed by Jose. And then when you scan that print in Artivive, it's going to melt away and play through these comic format NFTs that I think is going to be really unique too. So you'll be able to get some of Jose's, physical art that's going to be signed by him. But then when you look at it, you can kind of show people, oh, this isn't just, a physical piece of comic art. This is kind of the future, or at least what I think is the future of physical comic art, as AR becomes a more prevalent thing in the traditional art community. So this last one, I think it's the last one, is called Hanging. It's the story of a man who cheats death and then finds the corrupt sheriff who tried to hang him, and you'll see that death intervenes there too. The sheriff gets poisoned, and death collects his next victim, as Jose likes to say. So that's the those are the main pieces. There's 2 other pieces that are part of this drop that I think are really cool and for different reasons. One is this collector coin that's going to be available. It's a 3D NFT coin that we put together with Jose through the studio. That's going to be an edition of 50. I think it's going to be $7.23, and it's going to be a raffle for any holders of the original comic book. And so one thing Jose really wanted to do through this drop, and we wanted to do with him, was reward people who have collected and held the comic book. And so yesterday there was actually a pre-sale of the edition of 250. 100 of the editions were on sale, and that was open to all past Jose Delbo collectors on Makerspace. And today there's going to be this raffle of 50 editions of the coin, which is going to be open to people who still have the Death No Escape comic book. Beyond that, there's one piece that I think is really, really special, and I want to, kind of talk about it a little bit separately from all the others. Jose, obviously, the comic book was drawn in black and white and then colored, like most comic books. Jose, had this cover art that he created for, the cover of the comic book, and that was that was something that we had been thinking about. When would we mint this? When would we bring this to the world? We thought about doing it right away at the beginning and decided, let's keep this and save it for another date. And then, Jose, thinking about the 1-year anniversary, we talked about it. We said, now might be a good time to take this piece, which for me, and based on what Jose's told me, is probably the most significant piece he's ever created, just because, for one, it was what started everything for him. It was the first, entry into this space. It was the art that represented that, although it's going to be obviously minted now. But it was also it was really the realization of a dream for him. And so I think what this piece, this one of one, represents is everything that he, spent his entire career doing in order to perfect a certain craft and to, finally be able to create his own character, that turned into this huge thing within the NFT space. I think that one of one is truly special to him. That piece is going to be auctioned over the next 2 weeks. And so the first drop starts today. The auction for that piece will start today. And then it'll actually end on August 6th, which is going to be the day after the second part of this drop. On the second part of the drop, there'll be more editions of the 250 available. There'll be the other 3, limited edition pieces will be available. And then, the auction for this one of one will close. And I think it should make for a really cool event. And I think a really interesting piece of art to collect. And if that kind of isn't enough in and of just the NFT, that piece is going to come with a physical version of the comic book. And so it's actually the first physical version, the artist proof that Jose was sent, signed. And so, one thing that's interesting and kind of backstory behind this whole Death comic is that shortly before Jose made the decision to do this in the NFT space, he got a print run done of, very limited print run done of this comic to kind of see what it would look like as a comic book. And so when he made the decision to release it as an NFT, he never released any of those print comics. And so, but they exist, and there's this, really cool artist proof that's like the first one. It's numbered and everything. And so that's going to come with this 101. So I'm really excited about that. A little bit nervous because I was the one who told them now was probably a good time. So I'm hoping that someone really loves that piece and it finds a good home. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun drop. I'm really looking forward to it. It's the first major drop for my studio, Apollo NFT. And we're excited. This is just the beginning for us, and the beginning of us working with Jose and these characters to kind of continue to take them and continue to try to evolve the comic space as we move forward and figure out what that looks like with NFTs, and continue to try to do stuff that's innovative and really is going to be impactful on the space.
Oh, wow. You guys have so much going on, man. This is so much. And damn, getting a physical piece, that's amazing. I'm sorry, but how do I check out the 101? I want to take a look at it. Can I?
Yeah, so if you go to the Makerspace, if you go to the drops page, right there, the little fire sign, and you click on the one that says Death Reanimated.
Okay.
You click in. That will bring you to all the pieces for this drop. And so I'll kind of take you through them. So that first one is the one of one. That's the black and white line art that was used to create the Death cover for the comic book. And so that's kind of, to me, the feature of this collection, other than the addition of 250. But that's, Jose's feature there. And yeah, so that's the one I just talked about. I think this is going to be a really cool piece, just because of what it means to Jose, what it means to what the comic meant to the space, but also I like this piece. I think it's a cool art. I think it looks really cool in black.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
And then if you I guess if we want to look at the other pieces, you'll see on the drop screen that there's going to be those 3 other pieces and then the coin. So these 3 that you see, those next 2 and then the one to the left, those are the limited edition pieces. The top 2, the editions of 5, are going to come with the signed AR enabled print that it's it's pretty nice size. It's like a poster size print that you can frame and put on your wall, and then you scan it in the Artie Vive app, and you start to see the print with the AR kind of kicks in, and the piece comes to life. And so you'll see it's a little bit different format than the comic. The scenes play through in the comic style. And so when you look at it on your wall and you scan it, this is what you'll see, obviously on the iPad or whatever you're looking at it through. It'll actually be the size of the print, and it'll kind of progress through these scenes in the piece itself, which we thought was unique. We wanted to kind of pay homage to that comic style, and really trying to find a way to encapsulate that in a more fine art type piece. And so that this is what we landed on with Jose, and we're happy with it. I think it achieved the purpose. But I'm excited to kind of see how everybody reacts, because I think it's different. I think it's different than things that we've seen before.
No, it definitely is unique, absolutely. And I think you guys succeeded to convey the comic feeling that comes from his style. So that's really cool. It's really different from what he does, but still identifiable as
right.
Relating to that. So I think you guys definitely succeeded on that.
And what's cool is that piece there is obviously all Jose's art, and so it starts with that, it ends with that, and that's the piece that will be the poster, or the print will be that piece that was drawn by Jose, which I think kind of ties it all together. At least that's what we were going for.
It's really cool. It's really, really cool. Hell yeah, it works. I love this. Oops. I love this, just seeing his work, and then boom, there's the animations. It's a really cool idea. And I would love to see how it looks like when you're playing it in real life.
Yeah, there's actually, it's funny, somewhere on the Twitter, and we'll probably post it again. Jose will probably post it on his, and we'll probably post it on the Apollo NFT. The first time he actually saw the final version of the piece, we waited until it was done in AR. So we got him the print was done. We put it up in front of him, and then we gave him the iPad with the Artie Vive app. And so for the first time, he saw the piece in AR, and that might have been the first time he really saw AR and paid attention to it. So it was like this crazy whirlwind of emotions going on in his head, seeing the completed piece and seeing it in AR. And I think that was a really cool thing to see, and be able to see his reaction. And we captured it all on video, so we're gonna put that up on Twitter for everyone to see.
All right, amazing. I'm looking forward to it. I definitely want to check that out. So someone asked, and this is an interesting one. Given that certain NFTs will be accompanied by a physical element, where do you believe the split in the source of value is? Mainly due to the NFT, mainly due to the physical, perhaps something else?
Yeah, so I guess my thought process on that is it depends, right? If someone is a traditional physical artist and they create a physical piece, and all they do is they take that physical piece and they turn it into an NFT, right? They take a picture, they do whatever they do with it. I think then, and the pieces are coupled together. I think then you're probably the source of value is going to be very much based on the physical. But I think that when you look at pieces like these, where and what Jose's been doing for the last year, where the pieces are very specifically created for the NFT space, and oftentimes the physicals aren't released, or the physical that is released is a print with AR or something like that. I think you start to really drive value through the piece itself. That said, I think that because the physical pieces are tied to an NFT, and because the physical pieces kind of enhance that lore that goes with the NFT and become part of the story, like these prints that had the AR. I think as a collector, myself personally, I like the idea of being able to do both, right? To have, I have my Samsung frame, which I can play the NFTs on and video and whatnot. But then I can also put a piece on my wall and say, look, this is a really high quality piece of signed art that I love the way it looks, and it's just there, and it's something I enjoy looking at. But then when I want to show someone, or even when I want to just see it myself, I pop open my phone or my iPad and I look at it, and it's totally enhanced. It's totally different from the piece that you would see traditionally. And I think a lot of artists have really played on that concept with AR. And I think the classic one was Trevor Jones's Picasso's Bull. And I think at that time when it sold, I think Picasso's Bull, the NFT, sold for $55,000, and the painting itself sold for $50,000 or $55,000. And everyone kind of asked the same question. And I think they're linked. I think they'll forever be linked, because I think the piece was genuinely created to be an NFT. And so I think one without the other doesn't tell the full story. I do think, you're going to start to see old IP start to be minted as NFTs, and either enhanced or just the way it is. In that case, I think I tend to lean towards whatever the relic is. If it was natively physical, if you have a Monet that someone is able to acquire the rights to and mint as an NFT, I think the painting's going to be worth a lot more than the NFT, unless they're coupled together, because the artist intended to express themselves through the physical piece, and then someone later on is coming and minting it. But I think in terms of art, it's really what the artist intends and how the artist is what canvas the artist is choosing to use. And so in Jose's case, Jose uses a physical canvas as the beginning, I would say, of the process of creating an NFT. But the end goal is always to create a piece that is best captured for the NFT space. And so for me, those pieces, when the artist's intent is to create an NFT, that's where the NFT is always going to be more valuable. I think if the artist's intent is to create a physical piece, and then that physical piece is either duplicated or coupled with an NFT, I think then you'll probably start to see the physical pieces being more valuable over time.
Wow, that ended up being a really good question, Luskaja. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, great question.
Oh, and he keeps coming, and I know this is a tough one, but he wants to know, after having worked at a law firm, in your example, if you get old IP minted as NFTs, who owns the IP?
Well, it depends on the situation, right? So I'll kind of give you I don't want to bore you, but I'll give you the 30-second version of how the law works around copyrights in art. Typically, the default rule is that when an artist creates a physical piece on a canvas and then sells that physical piece, the artist retains the copyright to the IP, and the buyer essentially acquires the right to resell the canvas or whatever the art that they've acquired, as well as the right to display it. And you don't require any rights to reproduce it. You don't acquire any rights to use it for other commercial purposes. You have the right to buy it and resell it, and you have the right to display it for personal use. So that's kind of the default package of rights that's conveyed with an art piece. Now, an artist, of course, could create that work and give a license or give an assignment of that copyright when they sell it. That's definitely a possibility. Sometimes work is work for hire, right? You have a artist creating work for a studio. That work, because they're an employee, automatically the copyright transfers to the employer. So that's a different line of thinking. But NFTs operate very much the same way. And so if you read the terms of service for most of these platforms, you'll see that what you're purchasing is those same two rights: the right to resell it and the right to display it for personal use. And so the copyright always stays with the artist. I think the NFT space is a little bit interesting in that respect because there's definitely a thought and a standard that even though the artist retains the copyright, they're not going to use that piece in a different way or create new editions of that piece or anything like that. Some artists, and I think it's definitely fair when artists create prints and sell prints of their NFTs, unless they said that they wouldn't. But generally speaking, obviously it's frowned upon for artists to take the same art and mint it elsewhere as an NFT. Now, it wouldn't surprise me at all if one day you see Picasso's Bull wearables, in Decentraland, or you see a Hackatow Heroines Crypto Motors car. So there's a million different ways that IP can be used and changed and kind of repurposed within this really broad NFT space. But as like a basic principle, the IP isn't transferred when you sell the NFT. Now, I think the future of NFTs and everything that can be kind of stored within a smart contract and passed along with an NFT is going to allow for artists and other types of creators to package their NFTs with much more, wide assortments of rights, with commercial rights, with everything. But even, you look at some of these, and I won't name any, but it gets me as a lawyer. You look at some of these projects that are supposedly these profile picture projects, the avatar projects that are supposedly transferring the rights, and you actually look at the terms of service, and really usually what they're giving you is a license that they're actually keeping the IP for enforcement reasons, and that's where it starts to get boring and technical. But there is this illusion, I think, sometimes that when you buy something, you own the IP, and that's usually not the case unless it's very specifically outlined in either some sort of licensing agreement or in the terms of use of the platform.
All right, perfect. I did not thought that I would be able to get such a proficient answer in this subject. So sure. I personally really appreciate that because it's complicated.
It is. And I nerd out over this stuff, and luckily I've been doing it, now for 6 or 7 years, but it's complicated. And even the lawyers don't fully understand NFTs, myself included. We're still trying to figure out what to do with NFTs and how everything works, and what an NFT really is as a legal principle is still an open question.
Amazing, and it's definitely going to take some time to define. But Nick, I'm really enjoying the time that we have had here, and I wish we had more, but we have another event coming in just a few minutes. So I have one last question for you, and it's fine if you answer with a Jose piece. But you mentioned that you also collect, and we love to see people being faced with this question. Which one is your single most personally favorite NFT?
Okay, so I'm gonna put aside all of Jose's pieces, and then this becomes an easy question for me. So putting aside everything that Jose's done,
cool.
It's definitely Picasso's Bull by Trevor Jones. Not necessarily because I think that's the greatest concept or the greatest piece of crypto art, but that's the piece of crypto art that really introduced me and got me started on. It was right around the same time that Jose released, and so that piece really spoke to me, and it is the piece that allowed me to show Jose a piece of crypto art and have him immediately understand where he could evolve his art to, because Trevor's a traditional artist, a painter who really evolved his art in the space. And for me, that was the vision I had for what Jose could do with his art in this space. And so, obviously as a collector, Pablo is a good friend. who collected that piece. I've always told him that, I'm jealous that that piece is so iconic and really awesome. But yeah, that's my favorite piece. I have no qualms about saying that that's my favorite piece.
That's fair, and that's a beautiful and incredibly iconic piece. So that's fair. That's fair. I would take it. So thank you very much, Nick, for being here. And as you move forward in the space with Apollo, with Delbo, I'm sure we'll have other opportunities to talk. Still, I really appreciate your time, and I wish all the success in this drop and the future ones to come. This is beautiful. The whale community loves it, and we're going to be paying very close attention.
Thank you so much. If I could just take 1 minute and just say that the drop is at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time on Makerspace. It's right there on the drop page. If you guys want to check out the pieces, everything's already live. If you want to follow us for any reason on Twitter, Jose is at Jose_Delbo. Apollo NFT is at Apollo NFT, and then my personal Twitter, where I talk about some of this legal stuff sometimes, is at Metaverse NFT. So if you want to give a follow, we're always, I'm always happy to interact with anyone. Feel free to reach out with questions or anything you might have. I'm an open book. So super happy to have talked with you guys. Whale community's been a part of Jose's, journey and my journey this whole time. So super happy to be here today, and hopefully, like you said, again in the future.
Perfect, man. Thank you so very much. And the community will be definitely checking out all the links that I will be posting. And this video also goes live on YouTube later. So thank you very much, and thank you the community for being here. I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Amazing. Thank you. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Have a nice day, Nick. Thank you.
Bye.